Hi there, I'm Roux. Welcome to my video, and welcome to the third ever Crime Lime. Last week, we took a look at the case of the Blanchards. This week, we're going to take a time machine and look at the case that shook the 80s. The case of Diane Downs. What's special about the way I'm going to tell you this story is I'm already going to tell you who did it. You might say, why would you already tell us who did it at the beginning of the episode? Well, here's the thing. The person who did it is such an interesting conundrum that the whole case in and of itself wouldn't make any sense unless you already know that she did it. And who is she and what did she do? Diane Elizabeth Downs tried to kill her children to win over a man. Now, Diane was dating a man named Robert Knickerbocker. He was a married man and he was having a difficulty in his marriage, and he unfortunately made the very unwise decision to date Diane as his extramarital affair. He later broke up with Diane and went back to his wife, and his wife forgave him. Diane, however, was obsessed. She was convinced that Robert Knickerbocker was her soulmate and she would do anything to get him. Here's the thing though, Robert was a child-free man. Like, people didn't know what child-free was back in the day, but if it was today, he would have identified as child-free, r/child-free. And he didn't want to have kids or be the father of any children, be it a stepfather, anything. So when he kept telling her that, I don't want to be a dad. Like, we can't be together because I don't want to be a dad. That was his go-to excuse. He also didn't want to be with her. But, he just kept saying, it's never going to work because I don't want to be a parent. So even though he kept telling her that he also didn't want to be with her and he went back to his wife and he loves his wife, Diane got it into her head that if she just didn't have the kids anymore, she could have Robert. So what she does is, on May 19th, 1983, she decides she's going to kill her kids. She takes the kids on a car ride. It's late in the evening. They're driving down an old dirt road, like in the middle of nowhere. She stops the car and she shoots them. Critically wounds all of her kids. All three of them. Christy, age 8, Cheryl, aged 7, and Danny, aged 3. They're all gun-riddled in the car. She then shoots herself in the arm to make it convincible and believable that someone else but her just tried to kill her kids. She then drives as slow as she can to the hospital because she's trying to make sure that those kids are not going to survive because she really wants Robert. She wants Robert Knickerbocker. She gets to the hospital at Mackenzie Willamette Hospital in Springfield, Oregon, in the United States, which is where this is all taking place. And she says, "Oh my God, we've all been attacked by a bushy-haired stranger. Someone just tried to kill me and all my kids." The medical staff, of course, are like, "Oh my God," they go in, they try to save the kids. Unfortunately, her slow driving was effective on one of the children, and Cheryl, age 7, was already dead by the time they got to the hospital. Christy, aged 8, has lost so much blood that she has a stroke and is put into a medically induced coma. Danny, aged 3, was shot in the spine and became paralyzed for life. Now, of course, everyone is horrified. They have to find this crazy person who just tried to kill this young mother and her children. So the police arrive and they take Diane's story. And Diane goes on to this fantastical story about how there was a bushy-haired stranger hiking on this dirt road that they were taking. Why were they taking this dirt road? Because they like to take the scenic route. They like to take roads they've never taken before. It's just a thing that they like to do. So that's what they did that evening, she says. And what do you do, of course, when you see a scary-looking bushy-haired stranger hiking in the middle of nowhere with your 3 vulnerable children in the car? Well, you stop, of course, and ask them if they need any help. This is just, her story is just so ridiculous. She goes on to say that she stopped for the bushy-haired stranger. She stops the car and she takes the keys out of the ignition, gets out of the car, and asks the bushy-haired stranger if he needs any help. He says he wants her car. She says, and I quote, "You gotta be kidding me." And this is just insane. She says he responds by leaning over into the car, shooting the children instead of shooting her, or wrestling the car keys out of her hands. Yeah, she's not a very believable liar. She then says she wrestles with the bushy-haired stranger and that she manages to fool him by pretending to throw away her keys so that he'll run after it, and she gets in the car and she puts pedal to the metal to the hospital to save her children. In the scuffle, she claims that she was shot by this bushy-haired stranger. Her story has so many red flags, but this was the 80s. People didn't believe, they didn't have this pre-existing notion that mothers could just kill their kids. It was an innocent time where people were like, oh, of course, mothers are just beautiful, wonderful, godlike creatures who just love their children, of course. Now we know better. You can be a sociopath and still be a mother. You can still be a horrible monster and still be a mother. And you can definitely be a woman and still commit a horribly violent crime. But they didn't really think that way back in the 80s, so they believed her when she first said this insane story. Even though I find it pretty suspicious, and they should have caught on to this immediately, that it's really strange that a mother who has 3 gun-riddled children in the car decides to wrap her own wound instead of tending to theirs and then driving to the hospital. She says it's because she wanted to make sure that they survived, so she tended to her wound so that she could survive and then save them. But from an instinct point of view, that's pretty alarming already. One thing that really goes to show how cold Diane is when she came in with the kids who were really injured, she kept talking about how it's such a shame. It's a new car. I just got the car. It's such a shame that now it's full of blood. She kept mentioning that. That was one of her priorities. Her children had been shot, but her car though, it was new. So sad. But they didn't really pick up on that, and I think she would have gotten away with it. I think she would have gotten away with trying to kill her kids if it weren't for her own bizarre behavior. See, because Diane isn't just a sociopath, a person who has no empathy and who doesn't understand emotions and who doesn't feel bad about anything they do. She's also a attention-seeking narcissist. And when you're the mother of 3 children who were just attacked by a bushy-haired stranger, you get a lot of attention, especially from the media. And she was gobbling up every single inch of it. She did so many interviews, it's crazy. Everyone and anyone who wanted to interview her about what happened, she was giving them an interview. And that's when the police and, people in general started to realize that there was something severely off about Diane Downs. Here's a woman who has 3 children. One of them has been killed. 2 of them are in hospital. One of the children in hospital is in a coma. And she's just seems like she doesn't have a care in the world. Smiling, laughing, basking in her 15 minutes of fame. So the police finally start looking into Diane as a suspect, after countless hours and police sketches of trying to find this imaginary bushy-haired stranger. The first thing that really trips her up isn't just the interviews, It's someone who I think saw the interviews on TV or like basically heard about the case. It was a huge case. And they call into the police and tell them that they were behind Diane in a car on that dirt road that fateful evening. And they tell the police that she was driving so slow that driving behind her almost caused them to kill their engine constantly. She was driving so slow, you couldn't even get the speedometer to go up. And the police is like, oh, well, now we have a witness that's definitely poking a hole in her driving pedal to the metal to the hospital to save her kids, and she's acting really bizarre. Something is severely wrong here. So they make sure that she doesn't have any access to the kids. Although before they made sure of this, she was visiting the kids at the hospital, even though she was really carefree and she was doing all the interviews and living her best life. She visited the kids at the hospital, and Christy, the eldest, who was in a coma, apparently reacted really negatively whenever Diane came into the room. Which is, a lot of people who have been in a coma say that they can hear everything that's going on, so that's probably what was going on, and the little girl, poor thing, was lying there unable to move, and her mother, who just tried to kill her and who just shot her siblings in front of her, coming into the room is going to make her upset. And she was visibly upset when her mother was there. She was, her vitals were going off the charts and her, heartbeat, stuff like that. To which Diane responds with, oh, she must be brain dead. Let's pull the plug. Yeah. I'm pretty sure she was realizing that her daughter knew. That her daughter remembered that she just tried to kill them. And she was trying to cover her tracks by eliminating the witnesses. Like Danny, the youngest, he was just 3, so he probably wouldn't remember anything. But it's pretty evident that the oldest is remembering, so yeah, she tried to eliminate her, even after the fact. Luckily, they did make it so that she couldn't have any access to the kids while they were investigating her. She kept saying, how could you possibly think that I did it? And this is crazy. She literally says in an interview,
if I had shot my own children, would I not have done a good job of it? Why would I have taken my kids to the hospital? Wouldn't I have made sure they were dead and then cried crocodile tears? That's insane to think that I would do such a thing and then bring the witnesses in against myself. That's crazy.
Literally, she's saying, if I tried to kill my kids, you better believe they would have been dead. So you can't accuse me of anything. Yeah. In the interviews, too, she's never concerned about her kids. She never shows any sadness about the fact that her children are in hospital. She doesn't show any sort of empathy towards the fact that they are really wounded. An interviewer asks Diane if she thinks her kids were unlucky and how sad it is that they were shot. And Diane goes,
everybody says you sure were lucky. Well, I don't feel very lucky. I couldn't tie my damn shoes for about 2 months. It is very painful. It is still painful. The scar is going to be there forever. I'm going to remember that night for the rest of my life, whether I want to or not. I don't think I was very lucky. I think my kids were lucky. If I had been shot the way they were, we all would have died.
So you see why people were like, oh my god, there's something wrong with this woman. But they didn't arrest her for this, even though they were really suspicious of her, even though her gunshot wound in her arm was facing the wrong way, meaning that they could tell that the entry wound was coming from a self-inflicted pose instead of a pose where someone was shooting at you. It was the wrong way around with the entry point and the exit point of the wound of her arm. They waited a really long time to arrest her. And during that time, she went on so many interviews and just sealed her own fate. It's just, yeah. Seeing her in the interviews is honestly just chilling. Because she says these horrible things about how her children were bleeding out and she's going into graphic detail. And then just right after that, she smiles.
And I stood there and I looked at Christy reaching. And the blood that just kept gushing out of her mouth. And what do you do? But at night, when I close my eyes, I can see Christy reaching her hand out to me while I'm driving, and the blood just keep coming out of her mouth. And that, maybe it'll fade too with time, but I don't think so. That haunts me the most.
Like, what the fuck? You just talked about how how your children were dying in front of you. The smiling too could be like duper's delight, where when someone lies, a lot of the time they smile right after because they're really happy that they think they're getting away with it. She could also just be smiling because she loves getting attention. I don't know, there's just so many disturbing things about this woman. As Diane was feeling the heat of being the prime suspect, all of a sudden, she changes her tune. She changes her story. Suddenly, the bushy-haired stranger wasn't so much a stranger, and also, they said her name and knew things about her, and definitely, it was a hit. It was someone who knew her, who was trying to kill her and her kids.
You've changed it by saying that this guy knew you now, he knew your tattoo, he knows about you, he threatened you. That's a hell of a change from what you said the first time around.
There was no reason for you not to say that at the very beginning.
Okay? No reason in your mind.
Do you feel guilty about what you did, Diane?
No, because I didn't do anything wrong. And I wouldn't change it if I could. My kids and I always took the back roads. I'll make you a deal, okay? Next time I remember something, yeah. You can find the guy yourself, because I know I didn't do it. And you can chase your little tails for the next 20,000 years if that's what it takes. You don't like my help, you can it.
You're real confident in yourself, aren't you?
Since you guys seem to think that I should have brought Diane with me, I will get it myself, because I know who did it.
You do know who did it?
Yes, I do. I damn sure do.
You know him by name?
Yes, I do, yeah.
You saw him shoot your kids.
Yep.
It's pretty important.
And I saw him grab my arm and yank my arm out and shoot my arm and say, now try to get away with it. And I'm leaving because I know who did it. Bye.
But 9 months after the incident, she was arrested. So on February 28th of 1984, she was arrested. But wait, there's more. When she was arrested, dear old Diane was pregnant. Yep. The woman who just tried to kill all her kids is brewing up a new one. I don't understand who wants to have sex with Diane Downs. Who wants to have intercourse with someone who is accused of killing her kids? Like, it's not like they couldn't have known either. Like, it was like headline news. Like, they would have known that this was Diane Downs and this woman has been accused of killing her kids. But yeah, someone impregnated her while she was out and about before she was arrested, in those 9 months before she was arrested. She never revealed who it was, who the father was. When she was asked, and this is astonishing, she went on Oprah. She wasn't actually in the studio, but she was via like video. And she went on Oprah, and Oprah interviewed her. And she asked Diane, why would you get pregnant? You're accused of killing your kids. And Diane was like, I was just so lonely.
You were pregnant at trial. Why did you get pregnant again?
I was extremely lonely. I missed my kids desperately. I had just seen Christy on the 2nd of October, and it's like opening a wound and pouring salt in. I was extremely lonely, beyond belief and beyond explanation. And on October 13th, I just went and got pregnant because I was so lonely. I love my children. I miss my children. And I know that sounds simplistic. It really does. And I have to admit that. And that's why I say there's so much more feeling inside than I can give in 2 minutes.
Because apparently, if you're lonely, you should just grow another human. Then you're not lonely anymore. She kept saying that she had someone to talk to when she's pregnant. She has someone to talk to, and she's not alone in there, in the cell, apparently. Yeah. The creepiest thing is, and this just shows how devoid of feelings and empathy this woman is, Diane said that she missed her children so terribly that she just had to get pregnant. And she said, you can't replace children, but you can replace the feeling that they give you. Yeah, that says it all. A woman wrote a book about Diane Downs, a very best-selling book that became a movie called Small Sacrifices. The author's name is Roux, and she said it so eloquently in an interview, and I quote, Diane Downs didn't have babies so that she could love them. Diane Downs had babies so they could love her. And that just sums it up so perfectly. She didn't have them because she loves them. She had them because of what they could do for her. And since she wanted Robert, they weren't really doing what she needed. So she decided to get rid of them. They were just in the way. That's what you see a lot with sociopathic people and with narcissists. They only care about themselves, and people are just a means to an end. I saw the movie, by the way, Small Sacrifices. It was a really good movie, although it was a movie from the 80s, so it is 3 hours long. It has Farrah Fawcett in it. She's a really good actress. Damn, really impressed. But anyways, so she goes to trial, and she's just acting innocent as ever. She's never admitted to what she's done. Ever. Never. They waited so long to arrest Diane because they were waiting for her daughter to be well enough, to have recovered enough, to be able to testify against her. Her eldest daughter, Christy, who had suffered the coma, because she remembered and she was their key witness. And that's what sealed Diane's fate. She could have gotten away with it. She could have gotten away with all of this so many times. She could have gotten away with it if she just didn't act like a sociopath on TV. If she knew better, but she didn't because she's a sociopath and she just is the way she is. She could have gotten away with it too when they were in the trial because, playing on the whole, I'm a pregnant lady, feel bad for me, I would have never killed my kids. She could have gotten away with it, but because her daughter was so courageous, she didn't. And I'm so glad. What was really chilling too is during the court case, they played the song that was apparently playing during the shooting because in the car they were playing a song called Hungry Like the Wolf, and they played it during the trial, and Diane Downs tapped her feet and bobbed her head to the rhythm, to the song her children were shot to. Yeah. No normal empathetic person would do that. No. Something that's really sad that came out at trial was that Cheryl, the 7-year-old, the little girl who died, had told someone that she was really afraid of her mother. As a child, you do realize that there's something wrong with someone if someone's a sociopath like Diane Downs, and she did tell someone, a friend of hers, that she was afraid of her mother, and then her mother killed her. She was convicted to life plus 30 years on June 17th, 1984. So since that day, she has been in prison. She is still alive, she's in her 60s, and she keeps appealing that she should get out of prison, but nobody's gonna let her out of prison. No. She's never admitted to what she's done, and she's just doing her, I guess. She did give birth not long after the conviction to a little girl named Amy Elizabeth. Yes, Diane named her after herself. Diane's middle name is Elizabeth, and so is Amy's. She named her Amy Elizabeth Downs, but of course, she's not going to be able to keep the kid, so it was adopted and had her name changed to Rebecca Babcock, or Becky as she wants to be called. Becky has come out when she was an adult, and she's told her story to Oprah, other places, about how hard it was for her to realize that and to learn that her mother was a murderer who murdered one of her siblings. And she's told her life story. And Becky actually got in contact with Diane after learning that Diane was her mother. But it was really weird. Just the letters from Diane were really vain and really self-centered, and was just all about how Diane thinks it's a big conspiracy that she's in prison, and how it's just a big worm of crazy. So Becky decided not to have any contact with her after that. I think that's a good call. It's gotta be horrifying, though, to realize that you're the biological outcome of a sociopathic killer. And it made her question herself, what if I'm like her? She's not, though. She's a wonderful lady. But it's gotta be so painful. The 4 children, Christy, Cheryl, Danny, and Becky, aren't actually the only children Diane has ever had. She was actually someone's surrogate once. Now, and since this is the 80s, I just have to guess, but technology wasn't really that advanced when it came to surrogacy yet, and most surrogates use their own egg and then a donor sperm, aka the dad of the couple. So there's another daughter of Diane out in the world. She gave birth to a girl. She named her Jennifer before giving her to the parents who, renamed her something else. And you might say, oh, what a nice thing Diane did. She gave someone a child. She was their surrogate. She's so thoughtful and selfless. No, she definitely did that for attention. Just imagine how much attention she would get. And she's a narcissist. She loves attention. Imagine how much attention you'd get for being someone's surrogate, for carrying someone else's child. Oh, they would fawn over you for like almost a year. So I don't think it was because she was so selfless. I think that was all for the attention. Yeah. For the things they could do for her. For the good feelings they could give her. Not for the things she could give them and be like a wonderful, selfless person. No. And she could just very easily get pregnant, and she just used children as a means to get good feelings. Like, oh, they love me, they worship me. It's just so creepy how easy it is for this woman to get pregnant when so many wonderful people struggle, The story, although horrible, actually had a really happy ending. The prosecution and his wife actually adopted Cheryl and Danny. So after the trial, they got to live a happy life with parents who love them and who fought to get the person who hurt them in prison. So that's, a wonderful ending to the story. They are really private people. Becky has been open about her being the daughter of Diane Downs, but Christy and Danny are private people and they do not want to be interviewed or talk about that part of their life. Understandably so. Horribly traumatizing. I think this case really opened people's eyes to the fact that women can be just as violent as men, and you shouldn't just assume that a parent is not guilty just because they're a parent or because they're a mother. Like, it really opened people's eyes to the fact that not everyone should have had kids, especially people like Diane Downs. In conclusion, I just think this case is really interesting, and I really recommend checking out the movie and maybe the book if you like to read. And the interviews. I'm going to link all of the interviews in their entirety in the description. I highly recommend checking them out. If you're interested in this story at all, I really recommend it. It's a disturbing thing to watch, but it's worth watching. This woman is cold as ice. I hope you found that case interesting and that you want to hear more Crime Lime. If you do, remember to subscribe, leave a like, and do comment below what other cases do you want me to cover in this new series. Thank you so much to my wonderful patrons, Katbra, Madayana Jaworska, Ono Balloons, and Ellie. You make this possible. If anyone's interested in supporting this new series, there's a link below. Don't forget to join me next Wednesday when we delve into the case of the worst terror attack on Norwegian soil since World War II.